Welcome to the Infosec update. So, as usual, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them down in the Q&A section, and a colleague will get back to you regarding those. So my name is Simon Chapman. I'm the CTO here at Fliplet, and we're going to dive right in because I appreciate we are a little bit running over. And we'll start off with the compliance update. So as you may remember from our last quarterly, we were coming against the ISO 27001:2022 standard. This was completed in June by I'm not going to say it, by UCAS certified auditor. And yeah, so if you want a report of that, feel free to reach out and we'll happily get that across to you. We are currently in the process of conducting our annual penetration test. This is actually going ahead next week. So if you need a report of that as well, feel free to reach out and our support team will happily provide that for you. Vulnerability testing. So something we're introducing this year is vulnerability testing. Not that we haven't done it before, but more extensive. So we have increased our security posture with this, with continuous vulnerability testing. And what it's going to allow us to do is stay really up to date with all the latest vulnerabilities, 0 days, and the other 100,000 plus known vulnerabilities out there in the world, and really stay on top of anything that might be coming out. Rather than just honing in on that CREST certified penetration test that happens annually. This will allow us to keep up to date with the various known security flaws out there, and it will enable us to also have up to the minute coverage with regards to DAS testing. So moving on to security updates and maintenance. As my colleague Ian mentioned earlier, we have been doing some patches and security protocol updates with regards to our native providers, so iOS and Android. So these are now supporting of iOS 18 and Android API 34. So be sure to take those into consideration and build your apps. Following a review of AWS architecture in Q3, we've been looking at various enhancements that we can do to maintain the best-in-class security, and we'll come on to that a little bit later. We have been conducting security review and monitoring of our systems, so we've reviewed our GDPR sub-processor list. You can go and view the latest sub-processor list on our website, fliplet.com. We have also reviewed our OWASP application security verification standards to ensure that they're all up to date with our SDLC. So, security in Q4, what are we going to be doing? So when we're looking at reviewing and performing enhancements to our break glass and iron processes. So these were some things that we found, some improvements that can be made. It's not that they don't exist, it's that we want to make sure that we are focusing on best in the industry type standards. We're going to be expanding our advanced security monitoring and focusing on threat detection. And also this includes real-time visibility into suspicious activity. We're also planning a review into implementing a zero trust architecture for our session management. So this is going to further secure all our apps, as well as any sessions that may take place within Studio. So recurring InfoSec items. So starting from the top right, AWS audits. This is something we like to do regularly, keeping on top with our AWS infrastructure, making sure it's using the latest and best products that are out there, and making sure that it's all hunky-dory. Continuous vulnerability assessments. So I mentioned this earlier. We're going to be implementing this going forwards. So it's going to be really good. And of course, our ISO 27001. This is something we do continuously. It's not just a one-off for the year. That's just when we get our report. But this is obviously a constant focus throughout. We're going to be looking at defensive security improvements to prevent mistakes and abuse. And as mentioned with our continuous vulnerability assessments, that also feeds into our code smells and CVSS reporting. We'll also be conducting a red, blue, green, purple team exercise, which allows us to really test and put ourselves to the test of how we would react in the event of an incident. Now, lastly, with recommended actions for customers. So with apps, every 12 months, we recommend that you rotate or remove your SSO certificates and keys. Let's make sure that they're fully up to date and not liable to being leaked or anything like that. Apple pushes and or Firebase push keys, make sure that these are rotated or removed if no longer in use. Every 6 months, we recommend that you review your data source security rules. Make sure these are in keeping with your expectations. Review your data sources as a whole and check if they're viable to work offline. We also recommend that you review your app security rules and screen access. You may have changed the purpose of the screen, or maybe someone has left and it had a certain rule in there. Just make sure you check and make sure they're in keeping with your expectations. Review your API tokens and remove or cycle these. So again, it's good security posture to cycle, and you may have some leftover API tokens that were used for a one-off purpose, or again, may have been used by a developer or a member of your team and no longer are needed. Make sure you update your iOS and Android apps. It's always good to keep on top of this. And update DIS. So if you may have used it as a one-off import of data, you may have used it for some other purpose. If you're not using it anymore, it's always good to retire that. With Studio, quarterly, we recommend you review your organization security policy. Again, making sure that this is in keeping with your expectations, and review your audit logs. You might want to look for suspicious activity or anything like that. Retire old apps. Very important. You don't want to have leftover data or things in there which you are no longer in use. If you're not using it, always good to retire those. And of course, as mentioned in the product demo and roadmap demo, we've got some new features coming. So app health and log monitoring add-ons. So these will be really good to use either monthly or maybe even weekly.